Port Adelaide.
Thank you, Acting Deputy Speaker, and can I particularly thank the member for Charlton and the member for Gellibrand for bringing this important motion to the House, and thank members on the other side, even though I might not agree with many of the comments from the member for Tungi. Thank the members from the other side for joining in this very important debate. As the member for Port Adelaide, the importance of retaining our shipbuilding industry is of particular significance to me and the constituents that I represent in this place. Port Adelaide has an incredibly proud history of shipbuilding that dates back to the early 1800s, when H.C. Fletcher established his shipyard at Birkenhead in the port. The port was one of South Australia's earliest settlements and continues to be the main service point for South Australia in shipping. The schooner Jane Flaxman was launched at Port Adelaide in 1839, only 3 years after the settlement of South Australia. It's true that there have always been peaks and troughs in the demand for our shipbuilders in the more than 150 years that we've been building them in Port Adelaide. And this was particularly the case after the two world wars of the 20th century, when there was a shortage of ships in Australia due to wartime losses and to a downturn in shipbuilding. Today, at Osborne, near Port Adelaide, there is the home of the Australian Submarine Corporation, or ASC as it's now known, the main shipbuilder for the 3 Hobart-class Aegis air warfare destroyers, the largest defence project ever undertaken in Australia. More than 1,500 AWD workers are based in Adelaide, and there are a number of other spin-offs as well. Just as one example, can I mention Lefevre High School in the Port Adelaide electorate, which is developing itself as a marine high school, maritime high school, utilising the new trades training centre that was built under the last Labor government. This means, for example, that students at Lefevre High today can build skills in shipbuilding or engineering, move straight from school into apprenticeships at ASC, providing them potentially with great jobs for their entire working lives until retirement, just on the basis of the submarine building and maintenance program that Labor committed to. Similar stories exist in other schools in the western suburbs, the member for Hindmarsh's electorate, my electorate in the northwestern suburbs and the northern suburbs. South Australia and the Port Adelaide electorate in particular fared very well under the former federal and state Labor governments when it came to defence jobs. South Australia currently has 25% of all of the nation's defence work, in a state representing only 7 to 8% of the population. These jobs would be sustained and many more created with the former federal Labor government's commitment to replace the Collins class and double our fleet with the Future Submarines project, a commitment to acquiring 12 future submarines and assembling them in Port Adelaide. As well, the former Rudd government committed to bringing forward tenders for the replacement of patrol boats and 2 supply ships, the HMAS Sirius and the HMAS Success, to address the so-called Valley of Death, the period between work finishing on the AWDs and beginning on the future submarines. This commitment is vital for shipbuilding in the Port Adelaide electorate, vital for protecting the jobs of thousands of workers and retaining shipbuilding skills in our state, as it is in Williamstown, the Hunter and elsewhere. 6 months after the election, though, we've had no such commitment yet from the new government, a deafening silence that is causing very deep unease in South Australia. My colleagues, the members for Charlton and Gellibrand, who raised this motion, share my concerns. In Newcastle, 4JACs will have to lay off 900 staff by the end of this year if the government doesn't announce new shipbuilding projects. More than 1,000 jobs are at risk at BAE Systems at Williamstown in Melbourne. And this is not just a question of jobs, as important, obviously, as they are to those families and to those communities. It is also critical for our long-term national security that these vital naval shipbuilding skills be retained and nurtured. The last member to speak in this debate, the member for Tangi, compared this to the closure of the Whyalla shipyards, the shipyards building commercial ships. Well, frankly, that misunderstands the strategic importance of having naval shipbuilding skills in an island nation like South Australia. Port Adelaide's rich history as one of the nation's earliest shipbuilding sites must not be let down by this government. Our shipbuilding industry is far too important. Our national security as an island nation is far too important, and it is beyond time that this government acted.